The girl had never spoken a word in her life, not a cry, not a laugh, not even a whisper, and the doctors said she never would. Born into a mansion that overlooked the city like a throne of glass, surrounded by money that could buy anything except answers, the millionaire's daughter lived in a world of silence so complete that even her parents eventually stopped hoping. Her name was Eliza Sterling, the only child of Richard Sterling, a ruthless real estate tycoon whose net worth climbed higher each year while his heart hardened just as fast. From the moment Eliza was diagnosed as mute, no physical damage, no cognitive delay, just an unexplained silence, Richard threw money at the problem. Specialists flew in from Europe, Asia, private clinics hidden behind iron gates tried experimental therapies, and every failure deepened his frustration. Eliza became a problem to be managed rather than a child to be loved. Her mother left when Eliza was 5, unable to bear the quiet halls and colder marriage, leaving the girl with nannies who changed every few months and a father who rarely looked her in the eyes. Eliza learned early that silence was safer than disappointment. She spent her days drawing, watching people from windows, listening carefully to the world as if it were telling secrets meant only for her. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, far from glass towers and gated drives, Daniel Reyes woke every morning at 4:30 a.m., kissed his sleeping son on the forehead, and put on his orange reflective vest. Daniel was a single dad, a garbage man by trade, widowed after a drunk driver took his wife 3 years earlier. His hands were rough, his back constantly sore, but his heart was steady and kind. He worked the same route every day, collecting the city's waste while teaching his 8-year-old son, Leo, lessons about dignity, honesty, and kindness. No job is small, Daniel often said, if you do it with pride. Leo believed him. One rainy Tuesday morning, fate bent itself quietly. Daniel's truck broke down near the Sterling estate, and while waiting for dispatch, he noticed a little girl standing behind the tall iron gates, holding a sketchbook against her chest, watching him with wide, curious eyes. Most people looked away from garbage men. This child didn't. Daniel smiled and waved. Eliza hesitated, then slowly raised her hand and waved back. It was the smallest exchange, but something in it felt different. Over the next few weeks, Daniel's route kept passing the Sterling estate, and Eliza was always there, sometimes drawing, sometimes just watching. Daniel began bringing small things for Leo to give her through the gate, a folded paper crane, a smiley face drawn on cardboard, a tiny plastic dinosaur. Eliza never spoke, but her eyes lit up every time. She began drawing Daniel's truck, then Daniel himself, then a little boy holding his hand. When Richard Sterling finally noticed his daughter lingering at the gate every morning, he was furious. He assumed the garbage man was bothering her. One morning, he stormed outside, ready to threaten lawsuits and security upgrades, until he saw Eliza tug gently on Daniel's sleeve through the bars and press a drawing into his hand. Richard froze. His daughter never initiated contact with anyone. Never. Daniel, unaware of the man's identity, simply crouched down and said softly, "You're a good artist, kiddo. Keep drawing. The world needs people who see things differently." Eliza smiled. A real smile. Richard felt something crack inside him. Still, pride and suspicion won. He ordered security to keep Daniel away. Days passed. Eliza stopped going to the gate. Her drawings became darker, heavier. She tore pages out and hid them. Something precious had been taken from her, and no one noticed, until one evening, Richard found a drawing left on his desk. It showed a garbage truck driving away while a small girl stood behind bars, reaching out. For the first time in years, Richard felt shame. He ordered his assistant to find the man. When Daniel was summoned to the Sterling mansion, he expected trouble, maybe accusations, maybe threats. Instead, he found a broken father standing in a marble hall, asking a question money had never answered: "What did you do to my daughter?" Daniel answered honestly. "Nothing special. I just treated her like she mattered." That night, Richard made an offer that shocked everyone. He asked Daniel to spend time with Eliza, paid, supervised, temporary. Daniel almost refused. He didn't trust rich men with fragile hearts. But when he saw Eliza clutch her sketchbook and look at him like he was the only solid thing in her world, he said yes. What no one knew, what no doctor, no billionaire, no specialist could predict, was that this simple garbage man, carrying grief, humility, and unconditional patience, was about to do what millions of dollars never could. And the moment Eliza finally found her voice, it would change all of their lives forever. Daniel never imagined he would be stepping into a mansion after a 10-hour shift collecting trash, his boots still smelling faintly of diesel and rain, his hands rough against the smooth marble floors. Every instinct told him he didn't belong there. Yet every time he considered walking away, he remembered Eliza's eyes, the way they followed him as if he were something solid in a world that kept slipping out from under her. At first, their time together was awkward. Eliza sat across from him at a long table meant for 12 people, her feet dangling because the chair was too big, her sketchbook clutched like armor. Daniel didn't push. He didn't ask questions. He just talked, about his day, about Leo's school projects, about the strange things people throw away and the stories he imagined behind them. He spoke as if Eliza could answer, as if silence wasn't absence but simply another way of listening. And Eliza listened like no one ever had. She began drawing while he talked, first small things, then entire scenes, Daniel lifting Leo onto his shoulders, a house that looked warm instead of big, a table with only 3 chairs. Richard watched from behind glass doors, unsettled. Every expert he had hired tried to force results, speech drills, behavioral conditioning, relentless evaluations, but Daniel did none of that. He treated Eliza not as broken, but as complete. Weeks passed. Eliza started humming, soft, uncertain sounds that drifted through the room like shy birds. The therapists dismissed it as meaningless noise. Daniel didn't. "That's your voice stretching," he said gently one evening. "Like waking up a muscle you didn't know you had." Eliza's fingers trembled around her pencil. One night, during a storm that rattled the windows and knocked out power across the estate, Eliza panicked, covering her ears, shaking violently. Nannies rushed in, alarms triggered, but nothing calmed her. Daniel, who had been about to leave, knelt beside her and did something no one else ever had. He wrapped his arms around her and began to sing. His voice was imperfect, cracked with emotion, but steady. It was a song he used to sing to Leo when nightmares came. Slowly, Eliza's breathing steadied. Her hands clutched Daniel's jacket. And then, barely audible, fragile as glass, she made a sound that wasn't a hum. It was a word. The room froze. Daniel stopped singing. Richard felt his knees weaken. "It's okay," Daniel whispered, tears burning his eyes. "You're safe." Eliza swallowed hard, her face contorting as if fighting something trapped inside her chest for years. "Dan, IEL." The sound shattered the silence that had ruled her life. Richard broke down, sobbing openly for the first time since his wife left. Doctors rushed in, stunned, speechless. Tests followed, headlines threatened, money offered. Richard wanted to build foundations, name hospitals after Daniel. But Daniel refused the spotlight. "She didn't need fixing," he said quietly. "She needed someone who didn't give up on her." The biggest change came not in Eliza, but in Richard. He sold companies, stepped away from deals, and started coming home before sunset. He learned how to listen. Eliza began speaking more each day, her voice soft but determined, her first full sentence spoken not to doctors or cameras, but to Daniel's son Leo. "Will you draw with me?" Months later, Richard did something no one expected. He offered Daniel a position, not as an employee, but as family. A home near the estate, full scholarships for Leo, and a place at their table. Daniel hesitated only long enough to look at Eliza. She smiled and spoke clearly, confidently, a miracle no one could deny. Please stay. And Daniel did. Not because of money. But because love, real love, had finally found its way into a silent house and turned it into a home.